In 2023, researchers analyzing national metabolic health data published a statistic that should have made front-page news. Nearly 88 million American adults meet the criteria for prediabetes, and according to CDC estimates, more than 80% of them don't know it. But here's the part most headlines missed. Prediabetes isn't the beginning of the problem. It's the late stage of something that's often been developing silently for years. The real issue starts earlier. It starts with insulin resistance. Dr. Ryan Caldwell here. I spend a significant portion of every week reviewing primary metabolic research so I can separate what's biologically accurate from what's simply popular online. What I'm sharing today is not diet culture, not fear-based nutrition advice, and not supplement marketing dressed up as endocrinology. This is the actual physiology. Today, I'm going to explain what insulin resistance actually is, why it develops, why it's now affecting 1 in 3 adults, the early warning signs most people ignore, and what the strongest human evidence says you can do about it. Let's start with the biology. Every time you eat carbohydrates, your blood glucose rises. In response, your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is simple. It acts like a key, unlocking your cells so glucose can move from your bloodstream into muscle, liver, and fat tissue, where it's used for energy or stored. In a healthy system, that process is tightly regulated. But when cells are exposed to chronically elevated insulin levels, which happens when someone eats frequently, snacks often, consumes refined carbohydrates regularly, or carries excess visceral fat, those cells begin to protect themselves. They stop responding normally to insulin signal. This is insulin resistance. The pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. Blood sugar may remain normal for years, but insulin levels climb higher and higher behind the scenes, and that's where the damage begins. A 2021 review published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation described insulin resistance as the central defect underlying type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver disease, and even cognitive decline. Not a side effect, the central defect. Now here's why this matters. High insulin levels do more than regulate blood sugar. Chronically elevated insulin promotes fat storage, especially visceral belly fat, increases inflammation, raises triglycerides, suppresses fat burning, impairs nitric oxide production, affecting vascular function, and over time exhausts pancreatic beta cells. You can have normal glucose and still be metabolically unhealthy. In fact, one study published in Metabolic Syndrome and Related Disorders found that up to 40% of adults with normal BMI show signs of insulin resistance when tested directly. This is not just a weight issue. It's a metabolic signaling issue. So how would someone know? Here are early warning signs supported in clinical literature. Persistent fatigue after meals, difficulty losing weight despite calorie control, increased waist circumference, elevated triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, mildly elevated blood pressure, skin tags or darkened skin folds known as acanthosis nigricans. The gold standard test is a fasting insulin measurement combined with fasting glucose to calculate something called HOMA-IR. Yet most routine physicals do not include fasting insulin. By the time A1C rises into pre-diabetic range, insulin resistance has often been present for years. So what actually works? Let's prioritize by strength of human evidence. First, exercise. A 2022 meta-analysis in Diabetologia confirmed that both aerobic and resistance training significantly improve insulin sensitivity independent of weight loss. Muscle tissue is the largest glucose disposal site in the body. When you contract muscle repeatedly, you activate GLUT4 transporters that move glucose into cells without requiring as much insulin. In simple terms, movement restores insulin responsiveness. 30 to 45 minutes of moderate intensity exercise 3 to 5 times per week is sufficient to produce measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity within weeks. Second, reducing refined carbohydrate intake. Multiple randomized controlled trials show that lowering refined carbohydrate consumption reduces fasting insulin levels even without major caloric restriction. This does not require extreme ketogenic dieting for most people. It requires eliminating sugary beverages, ultra-processed snacks, frequent grazing throughout the day. Third, improving sleep. Even 5 nights of restricted sleep has been shown in controlled studies to reduce insulin sensitivity by up to 20 to 25%. Chronic sleep deprivation elevates cortisol, which directly antagonizes insulin signaling pathways. 7 to 8 hours is not optional in metabolic repair. Fourth, reducing visceral fat. Visceral adipose tissue is hormonally active. It releases inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6, which directly interfere with insulin receptor signaling. This is why waist circumference is often more predictive of metabolic risk than total body weight. The goal is not aesthetic fat loss, it's hormonal normalization. Now let me be clear about something. There is no supplement that overrides poor metabolic habits. Berberine has data, magnesium has data, omega-3s have supportive evidence, but none of them outperform consistent exercise, improved sleep, and dietary correction. Insulin resistance develops slowly, and it reverses gradually. The encouraging part? Unlike many chronic diseases, insulin resistance is highly responsive to behavior change, especially in its early stages. The longer it goes unaddressed, the harder it becomes to reverse. But it is not inevitable. If this is the first time you're hearing that normal blood sugar doesn't guarantee metabolic health, that may be the most important takeaway from today. Ask for fasting insulin, pay attention to waist circumference, move consistently, control glycemic spikes, protect sleep. The epidemic isn't loud, it's silent, and that's exactly why it matters. If this type of evidence-based breakdown is useful to you, the next video dives deeper into visceral fat and why it behaves like an endocrine organ rather than passive storage tissue. Leave a comment with the symptom or marker that surprised you most. Keep questioning. Stay informed.